floor's yours.
Thanks, Jess. Well, nice to be back with my old friend Paul Connolly. Paul, we've known each other a long time, but nobody's interested in that. Paul, famously one of the pioneers of canoeing on the Zambezi, where we're sitting right now. But here to talk about Paul's book, which I'm happy to give him a hand with, his short stories. But Paul, let's just start with, I know we've talked about it before, but just tell us a little bit about your early days and your family.
Yeah, so my father was with the department of what was then Native Department, which became Internal Affairs, which became subsequently Home Affairs at the end. So as a result, he was an intelligent guy, Hannes, but they didn't have money to send him to university, and he joined that department. And the result of which is we just lived in sort of outposts, quite remote places as we were growing up. Not always, times in Bulawayo, times in Salisbury, but generally the sort of out of the way places. And my mother was just a wonderful, permanently smiling woman, and she was just a mum. But then,
And there were how many children?
there were two. There was my brother, who was 14 months older,
Kevin.
called Kevin, and that was it. Just the two of
You
us.
didn't have a sister?
No.
Oh,
No.
just the two of us.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
And
got
you were
four
born-
daughters, but I didn't have a sister.
You were born in Lupani.
No, I was actually born in Kwekwe, but
born in
that was because it was the closest hospital. But we're living at the time, not in Lupani, actually in Bilingui for a couple of years. Doc Mavros and all those guys.
Okay.
That's where my parents met him. And then later, not long after, went to Lupani. Yaps.
And your old man was the DC then?
By then, he was just a DO, district officer.
Yeah.
They were amazing administrators. They were so honest. I write in this book about a reprimand that somebody was given because he couldn't account for a few pencils. You know, their honesty, their integrity was extraordinary. You saw it with national parks when there was that appeal for money from England to finish Operation Noah. And it didn't cost the amount they requested, which was £20,000. There was a little bit of change left at the end. They sent it back to the British government. They said, thanks, but here's the change. And this is something that certainly doesn't exist here, but it doesn't pretty much exist in the world anymore.
No.
That's long gone.
Quite incredible.
Yeah.
So Paul, you grew up in district stations really,
By and large.
and then went to junior school in Reading?
Junior school, we just went to wherever my parents happened to be. So if it was in the Bulawayo area, it would be a Bulawayo one.
you moved around
Baines,
quite a
I
bit.
think, then Salisbury, and then 3 different schools in Salisbury. And then senior school was Plumtree.
Paul, we were just talking about it earlier, and it's an era that's passed us by. But we were talking about Johan Joubert, and you mentioned the fact that as a senior, you had 4 fags. People forget about it, you know. But just talk about the fagging system at school.
Yeah. You know, Plumtree was a school, and as many were in this country, that was just full of, gotta say, wonderful contradictions. Our system was so English. We learnt about Scott because he died bravely. We didn't learn about Amundsen because he succeeded in getting to the South Pole, but he was Norwegian. So we didn't learn about Shackleton because Shackleton actually, he lived. We learned all this dramatic stuff, but we had a damn fine education. But the other thing about Plumtree is it never got more than about 380 people, and it was boarding. And so, you know, by the time you get to seniors and A-level, there aren't that many seniors as many juniors. So as a prefect, you were allocated these fags. Fags might have a wrong connotation these days,
Yeah.
but they were the first years and even second years that worked for you, that would like carry your books to the school. They'd clean your study, they'd polish your shoes, they'd clean your running spikes, they'd do whatever. I had 4 at one point, and eventually I went to the housemaster and said, "This is madness. I do not want to get self-important in life ever, and this is just a bad step." And so I ended up with three for heaven's sake.
And you were saying Johann Joubert was one of them, who I was talking to the other day. He was an exceptionally good sportsman,
He was.
and you liked him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a special young bloke. He really was. And, you know, of course, that was a long time ago, so I don't remember too much. But I remember later he came up to the falls. I think he worked for me for a short while. And again, I was just so impressed by him. I know he'd been in SAS, and you don't get there if you're a monkey. So but he went, something happened, Hannes. I don't know what it was, but he disappeared almost. He was just a decent, humble, good guy.
Yeah.
I wish he'd stayed. I would have loved a guy like that on my team. Yeah.
Well, after school, off to you went to the army or you went to university?
No, I went to university first. Because there was no such thing as a gap year. Doing something that I knew I wasn't going to enjoy, but I incredibly never failed an exam. I don't know how. Even my last year, the dean of the department came and said, you know, Paul.
So you're doing law now?
I'm doing law.
Yeah.
You're doing 6 subjects this term, this last year, but the only one we know of is income tax. And what about the others? And I said, yes, actually, I'm not doing income tax, but these are the ones I'm doing. He said, well, you better start learning, because so far your track record for tutorials and attendance is appalling. So I did, and I don't know, got through. But
this was University of Rhodesia. Well, where did you go?
So it was the university. When I went, it was University of Rhodesia. Prior to that, it had been the University College of Rhodesia. But what I liked about it, Hannes, was that it was a London LLB, was the London Law degree. Plus, it was 1 year less than the South African system, because we didn't have to do the BA first, because you had to have reasonable A levels to get into University of Rhodesia. I think by then it was called University of Rhodesia.
I think it was.
But it was the London Law degree which appealed to me.
And Professor Christie was in the saddle then, was he?
Professor Christie, and the guy I just thought was just the most amazing was Andrew Lang. He was an extraordinary. He was a powerful, incredibly intelligent, had a charisma. He preferred to be a farmer. He was a rugby coach, but he had just a real presence about him. And of course, these guys had brilliant minds. We had lecturers that had been deans at Cambridge and had lectured at Oxford. All of us did. Yeah. Even at school, we had many of the teachers were graduates from the best places, man. The best places.
We were very, very blessed
we were
with
so
our
lucky.
education system.
Big time.
What a high standard. I don't know if there'll be as high a standard set anywhere anytime soon. At the time we didn't realise it, the cheapest it was.
I do know this, that my daughters, until I sent them to St. Mary's, and I only sent the last one full-time to St. Mary's, and Julie, my third, only did 2 years there. But prior to that, they went to Girls' College in Bulawayo. And the head was an outstanding man. And he, at an open day, he was reading us a letter from Cambridge Examining Board or something like that. And he said, the statistics have shown consistently that the highest achiever in Cambridge at A-level, I think he even said O-level as well, O-level and A-level, was Girls' College in Bulawayo.
Wow.
That was the standard, that was the quality of teachers that were then. They were dedicated. You know, when I started the school here, the level of dedication was just consummate.
Paul, you were a better academic than you make out to be, I think, but you were an even better sportsman. But there was a boy from Mutali who was quicker than you.
There was a boy from Mutari who was then Umtali who was quicker than me. But he was a powerfully built guy, and I was a skinny oak in Form 6. And then there was a guy, John Calderwood, from St. George's. He was faster than me. And I got a bad year, Hannes, because as a schoolboy in those days, if you could break 2 minutes, you were kind of going to be the best. Well, Peter Bauer from Umtali and John Calderwood from St. George's, these guys were doing about 155, 156. They clubbed me. And I thought, this is so unfair. I've chosen a bad year. Nowadays, you get 18-year-olds doing in the mid 1 minute 40s. But you didn't then.
Yeah.
We didn't. But yeah, so I did. But it was only after that. when I got to university, I started getting a bit more, developed a bit more
But
muscle.
you held a couple of Plumtree records, or still hold it?
No, I did hold a couple. The longest though was, I think, for 18 years, which was quite
which
good.
one was that?
800 meters.
800 meters.
800 was my distance. Yeah.
And that stood for about 18 years, huh?
16 or 18. Let me go the high side and say 18. Yeah.
Hell of a thing. Paul, and then you go, I mean, you went into rowing in a big way, and I'm going to fast forward. You qualified for the Olympics, but then politics got in the way. That was a cruel blow.
It was a cruel blow, Hannes. It was a cruel blow because I knew I had the raw ingredients to row lightweight. I'm not a heavyweight. Never have been. I don't think ever will be. But I had the raw ingredients to be a lightweight. 6 foot, 72 and a half, 73 kilograms, and I could run a fast kilometer. So I just knew I could do it. And plus I rode rafts, with heavy rafts for years. And so I set about doing it seriously. Of course, there was no competition in this country. So I could only get the basis of it on my times on an ergometer. And so I got a Concept 2, which was the best. And there are magazines that would come out, I think, 3 times a year. And they would give the times, international times, strange enough in those days, on 2.5 kilometers, but the Olympic race is 2 Ks. And nobody ever knew why it was 2.5. But I did well, and I got to the top end of the top percentile after extreme training. So and not having a cigarette and having the odd glass of wine with Marie, who you know was my wife, and just eating in a disciplined way and gymming 5-6 days a week and rowing sometimes twice a day, exhausting. As you once said, your life became of sweat, exhaustion and pain. And yes, it did. It did. And but the obsession is power. Isn't it, Hannes? It's like stupidity is power, ignorance is power. Sadly, they are both power. Well, it's sad that stupidity is power, but it's not sad that ignorance is power. But obsession is power. I never once got concerned about hippo or crocs here on this river here, not once. And I got attacked 3 times. It's not quite right. On one of those occasions, I was just pissed off because my technique had been bad. I was tired, my rhythm had been out, and a croc was coming towards me, and it probably wouldn't have hit me. But I was angry and I was annoyed.
You had a handgun.
And I had a 44 Magnum between my feet. So I thought, well, the hell with you. And I shot him. But he may not have. But the other 2 or 3, the other 3 that definitely, I would wait. I wouldn't ever overreact. When you turn a single skull around, it's close. It's about 7 meters, and it's this wide. You've got to be so careful, and it's very, very slow. That it doesn't turn over. And that's when they did. And I'd wait. There were several, but you just knew that eventually they'd just go.
What was the closest?
Me to you. I couldn't wait closer than that. Me to you, and it was moving. Doof.
And that's when you fired?
3 times. The 4th I didn't need to, but 3 times.
It's a pretty tough way to get to the Olympics.
Well, it was. And in fact, I remember I remember before the Commonwealth Games, I went to Belgium, to Ghent, because a great guy, a wonderful bloke called Hans, he was the trainer of the previous Olympic world champion called von Bellingen. And he agreed to take me on. And of course, they have man-made courses there. So he was cycling up the path, shouting through the megaphone, because my technique was not good, Hannes. My fitness was, my strength was, but not my technique. So he was shouting, and I hit something. And for 4 years, I thought, if I hit something on the Zambezi, it's going to have a bad result. And I just span around and lost track of the oars and stuff, because I thought, instinctively, I thought I'd hit either a hippo or a croc. And I'd hit a little flock of ducks, and they just flew away. Oh, Hans was just packed out laughing. He said, "You don't need to worry on this course." Yeah, that was so. It was cruel. After I was denied the opportunity.
And what was the reason? It was the Zimbabwe Olympic Committee that decided that you couldn't go.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Towards the end, I was training, and slowed down near the boat club, and a boat pulled up next to me, and I noticed in it there was the international chair of the chairman of the International Olympic Committee. He was a little Spanish guy. Oh, you'll remember his name. And I just immediately thought, this guy will never accept me. For some reason, it was, the name was so close to me. Anyway, I thought maybe I'm just overreacting, but I just got such a bad feeling from it. And there was a good Zimbabwean guy there as well, who was on the Olympic Committee. But I qualified finally up in Egypt on the Nile. So the Olympic Committee, the International Olympic Committee, accepted me. Then the chairman of this one, a guy called Tommy Satoli, said, no, Connolly is too old. See, by that time because I started training at 39, I was fit. And, but I was now 43 or 44. He said he's too old. So they responded and said, well, look, my coach said, look at his times on the international scale of the ergometer readings. Look at these times. He's at the top, or in the top 1 percentile of the top 1 percentile. And then he said, oh, well, no, he can't go because it's a sport for the elite. Yeah. That's what he said. And of course, I couldn't argue that, Hannes, because
it's a pity the Olympic Committee didn't overrule
Well, they're spineless, weren't they? Yeah. Nobody wanted to offend an African country, pure and simple. Particularly what was then supposed to be the new Renaissance man on the block,
Very unfair, Paul. That was talk about racism. It doesn't get much worse than that. But Paul, let's go back. After university, you off to the army.
Yes.
You go and do you went to the School of Infantry.
Yes. Nearly thought of signing up regular, but I just didn't really think it was for me. But I did. So I stayed national service. Yeah, I was commissioned. Did my national service, which you will remember was a year, then 18 months, then 21 months. But then at that point, it was continuous. So there was no such thing really as a break. So from sort of 1976 to the end, it was virtually the whole time, I think, pretty much. The odd break. Yep.
Paul, it's a very sad chapter in your life, but tell us about Kevin, your brother. He was a reluctant warrior.
He was
a very gentle chap, but off he goes.
Exactly that. He just was. He was a genuine, proper, decent. He would have been a pacifist if he'd been around. He was a kind of hippie sort of guy, but he was a deep thinker, and he was gentle. And you just saw his group of friends. They were just utterly eclectic, from the most conservative to the biggest bloody druggie in Bulawayo. And they just all loved him, and he loved them all. He just never judged a thing. But he thought, listen, he'd better fulfill a duty. I mean, my father at that point was the secretary of the department, and that's the highest position you could get to. I was gung-ho to fight in a guerrilla war, and he thought, well, I better do it. And on his very last day of national service, he was killed in an ambush. 5 of them were killed in an ambush in the early hours of the morning. The guards fell asleep, and and they were all killed. One of them escaped, but the rest were killed. Yeah.
That was in the northwest.
Yeah, correct. It was the Siobua Valley, which, as you know, would be, 50 k's east of Binga. Quite well distant from the lake itself. Yeah.
Paul, just tell us about leaving the legal profession and your yearning for the river, and you go off, how you got the canoeing, the beginning of the canoeing operation.
Eddie Rouse, my friend Eddie Rouse, started the canoeing when I was still a lawyer. And it wasn't me who started that. But Eddie and Jane, his wife, they were struggling. Ed, like me, was a dreamer, but I had a bit more of ability to sort of dot the I's and cross the T's. Ed was just a lovely individual with great ideas. He wanted out. And I was bored with law. I was a partner, actually, in a damn good firm. They should never have made me a partner because I was so disinterested, but they did. And so Ed wanted to sell his shares, and I just got married, and I just said to Marie, "Oh, I just know there's something a lot bigger out there." It's a little bit like that. In the preface, I write about that little creature and surrounded by the millions who want to cling on. I just thought, I know there's something big out there. I know there's a big world out there, which doesn't have to be 8 to 5, and so maybe a bit of laziness, Hannes, maybe a bit of laziness or lack of commitment, but whatever it was very easy for me to go to Marie and say, let me just bin this. I remember clearly what I said. Let's just walk out this door with no idea of what the future brings. Let's live a life of excitement and adventure and romance. Let's just go feral. No, I said, should we just go feral? And she said, let's just go feral. Resigned, and then started Shearwater. Well, I didn't call it Shearwater then, but I started the other divisions of Shearwater.
Yeah, and then, so that was Colin Blythewood?
No, not then. No, it was just me, and then very soon Colin, and then later Speedy
Holden
took 10 of Colin's shares, and Mike Chidziva took 10 of mine. Yeah. So there was a kind of parity at that point.
Jeremy Brook?
No, he was never a shareholder.
No, but he came into the company.
Oh, he was brilliant.
Yeah.
And he was a nuclear force when it came to marketing.
Yeah.
And as I said in this book, although I started it all, I attribute or recognize Jeremy made it the success it became.
Right.
He was extraordinary. He was an absolute extraordinary guy.
Paul, the book.
Yes.
Tell us what fired you up? A bit about the book.
All right.
Motivated you?
Yes, okay. Well, as you know, you did a lot, but before you, this leopard incident had happened, and so many people wanted to know about the leopard story, and I was kind of sick and tired of should I break?
No, carry on.
Sick and tired of telling it. Because I was always getting a bit concerned that maybe I'd add a little bit of color or embellishment where it wasn't appropriate. So I thought, okay, I can't do that. That's just not square. So I thought, let me just write it. And it was bad. But, you know, when you're sitting in the evening and you're drinking, you've got a whiskey or a glass of wine, and you then begin to think, this is so funny. And you wake up in the next morning and you read it. And the night before you've been reading a Steinbeck or something like that, and you read your book the next day and think, this is just so bad. So it would be random, it would be times, bits and pieces. I'd write that story. It was 3 pages. And I'd also try and write other stories of expeditions, for example, well, not even so much, a little bit, but other anecdotes that had happened to mates of yours and mine. Because that's easy to write about. But then a wonderful human being called Ian Donovan, I don't know if you know him,
yes,
highly intelligent individual. Out of the blue, he just WhatsApped me 3 years ago, I think, said, hey, just write some stories. I had not heard from Ian for years, and out of the blue I get this message, just write some stories. Then I started, and I got a little bit more committed, by which time Marie had died, so I had time on, there's time. And I started getting into it. Then when you inspired me, and my daughter Danny, my oldest, she said, hey Dad, there was that pretty funny story you told when you were traveling across America with that mad guy. Write that story. And then they got me going. So
well done. I think these stories need to be written because it's an era that just seems to have passed us by so fast, and otherwise a lot of these things will be given. But Paul, you don't want to give the stories away, but just tell me again that story about the DC and the
magistrate. Too funny. So this was related to me by my father. So he wasn't the DC involved in the story, but he told me the story because he was in that same department. So they all knew these stories. And as you know, as a fact, that in the sort of outposts, the more remote setups, the magistrate would preside over the court, and if he couldn't, the district commissioner.
And the DC had jurisdiction over a lot of the native affairs.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it was almost a dual system of justice up to a point.
It was.
Yeah.
Up to a point.
Yeah.
So the DC and the magistrate were mates, and they would poach.
they were poaching together, were they?
Yes, as they did a few times. But they were caught on the one occasion, and they were taken into the member in charge of police who was a friend of theirs, and they thought, oh, it's no problem. Well, the member in charge of police said, I'm charging both of you with the offence of poaching. And the eyebrows went up. You're a mate. I'm charging both of you. You will face court. So now comes the court. The magistrate is on the bench. The DC is the accused. And he's standing there, and the magistrate says, I want to hear what happened. And the DC is telling him. The magistrate, of course, knows every intimate detail because he's also been there in that poaching incident. And the magistrate listens, and the DC very wisely doesn't ask for defence, because if he had, the member in charge of police would have been cross-examined, and that would have been almost a heartwarming cross-examination. So they all knew each other. So the magistrate says, right, okay, you apologised, you're contrite, I can see you're sincere, and he gives him a reprimand. And I'm going to let you off this time because it's your first offence. And he gives him a reprimand. Okay, so now the roles are reversed. And the district commissioner is on the bench, and the magistrate is the accused. And the district commissioner says, can I have what happened? So the magistrate tells the story, and sort of, yeah, he tells the story, and then the district commissioner says, how? This is the second case of poaching that's come before this court in one day, and I've had enough of it. This is reprehensible behaviour. You're supposed to uphold the law, and here you go off with your friend breaking the law. I fine you to $100, pounds, whatever it was then, or X weeks in prison. Yes. Yeah, that apparently is well, that's the way my father told it to me. And I have no doubt it's true, Hannes, because there was, although there was this real essence of integrity, there really was, as you know. Geez, it was amazing. But there was also, it just, I don't know, what would the word be? We weren't always that hard on each other. It was easy. It was a kind of pioneering thing, and you just get on with it type thing, you know.
Okay, I'm rolling.
Paul, I want to, who the people, just mention some of the people that you've talked about and written about in the book, not going into too much detail.
So I suppose the one who I know best, because I've known him since the age of 12, we were at school together, was Leon Barley. He's in two stories. Adrian Reed, Barney O'Hara. The others, particularly when the story kayaking in the Hindu Kush, was Tim Biggs, who's a South African great human being. I've known Tim for years, but he lives in Cape Town. I haven't seen him much. John Stevens, of course, who I see a lot of, I see a lot of John and Nikki, not enough. And then other people who've just popped up. And I write about that New Zealander Grant.
Yes.
And then, so I think that's about the one.
And your time in America?
Yeah, I didn't. Yes, where you just meet people, and I met some wonderful people there, including a guy who was mad in the head, dangerous individual. But otherwise, some great people, sort of hippie-like dreamers. And I was cutting wood I had several jobs in America, actually. Yeah.
The title, explain.
Yeah. So
The Shadowless Life.
Yes, which I make clear is not the blameless life, far be it from that. But I've taken it quite accurately, but not precisely, from an analogy or a metaphor mentioned by Plato in his book The Republic, and it's known as the cave. And to sort of précis that, it's imagine people being locked together in a certain way at the mouth of a cave, and all they can see is the back of the cave. But the light comes in from behind them, so even their own shapes are silhouetted on the back of the cave. And then things walk behind them, so they see the silhouettes of like an animal or a human being walking past. They can't see what it is because their heads are locked into one position. And they see drops of rain, and they have that beautiful smell of rain, but they can't associate them. And then the best is they just see at some point the back of the cave just flashing, lighting up, and it's lightning, but they don't know what lightning is. They've never seen lightning. So they live in a world of shadows and silhouettes. Now Plato cuts the bonds and says, turn around, look into the light. And maybe they're scared. with the brilliance of light, of day, and they're scared of the full experience of life. That sounds a bit pompous. That sounds pompous, but you know what I mean. So I just thought, by and large, because the life of shadows can prevent you from a lot of ache, a lot of pain, and mainly heartache. But the shadowless life exposes you to everything, absolutely everything, and it's raw. You can control the mind, you can control logic, don't control the heart. It's on its own mission. So, and the shadowless life makes this the big thing. So, I've said, and that's, I think by and large, I've led the shadowless life. But you know, I've been lucky. I've frequently said I've been doggedly pursued by God or good luck, and I don't know which. But one of them has doggedly pursued me. I've been lucky, Hannes. I've been lucky with the people I've met, the stupidity that I've had. Stupidity has just helped me so much. Ignorance has helped me so much.
Paul, just a little bit about Marie, your late wife. I know what a big part of your life she was. How did you guys meet?
So she was Belgian, from the French-speaking side of Belgium.
Yeah.
And she would hate me to mention this, but she was a baroness. And she was, but you know, Marie said, there's a million barons and baronesses in Belgium. It means nothing. And she was so unpretentious. But she came out to work as an au pair. She was a tall woman, 5 foot, just over 5'10", and extraordinarily beautiful, and with this French accent, but she was Belgian. And she came out to work as an au pair for a farmer whose wife had died.
What was his name?
Charles de Berberet. Charles de Berberet, very successful.
Yes, yes.
And his wife died in a car crash when their child was very small, I think like 2 years old or something like that.
Yeah.
And so Charles wanted this little girl to grow up with Belgian customs and speaking French. So he'd bring out an au pair just for a year. And then they'd go back. Marie did it for a year, went back, got back to Belgium and said, I just can't stand being back here. I'm going back to Zimbabwe, because it was now Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And so she came back, and then we met.
Okay.
We met. There was a lot of social activity then, Hannes, as you know.
Yeah.
There was so much social activities going on then. The war had ended, everybody was just having fun.
Yeah.
It was an active place. And quite bohemian in many places, not all, but many.
Those 80s weren't bad years.
They were hectic, but she was always gentle, retiring. So she'd go to these functions. I'm not in my comfort zone there, and nor was she. So once we were just sitting beside a fire, and chatting, the two of us. Yeah, it was a good connection. And then she married me, which she let me marry her, which was just beyond belief. I mean, I think my ancestry could be traced back to drunkards lying on the park benches of Dublin, and hers went back to 1000s or something.
Paul, you've met a lot of famous people over the years, but one that will resonate with a lot of people is Clint Eastwood. And he was a pretty down-to-earth guy. He's still around. Clint Eastwood,
As far as I know, he'd be at least 90, because there was a great song written. He was playing golf with his good mate, who was a musician, and his mate said to him, could you, what are you going to do now? You're turning 89. What are you going to do? And he said, Clint Eastwood said, I think I want to direct another film. Yeah, that energy. And then his friend, the songwriter, wrote that song, Don't Let the Old Man In.
Oh.
And that's where that song comes from.
Okay.
So I met him here because he wanted to do a reconnaissance, because he was making a remake of African Queen.
That's right.
And this was the rapids below the falls were the perfect place. So I spent a day with him. And he just had zero self-importance. He was relaxed, casual, easy to be with. You know, I don't like celebrities at the best of time unless they've really got a good reason to be a celebrity, and don't take themselves too seriously. You can't do that. You go to that place, It's not a cool place to be.
Yeah.
So he he just was a good guy. So it was weird. The next day, or the day after I met him was great fun. It was a lot of fun. But yeah, he was probably he was the best known person I've ever met. Yeah, surely.
That film, I don't think that film did very well. Because he spent time at Kariba as well.
It did not do well.
Yeah.
Black.
Yes,
White Hunter, Black Heart. It didn't do very well. And yet I thought it was very good. But he did $1 Million Baby, for example, about the boxer, the woman boxer. Man, it was just so sensitive. And then I've seen him do another couple that they're just unusual, very unusual movies. And I think they're great.
Yeah, hell of a guy.
But that movie didn't do well.
No. No, but they reckon he'd made so much money for, I think it was Warner Brothers. He could say to those guys, I want to make a film about the man on the moon, and they would let him do it because he was such a big money spinner for the studios.
Yep.
That name in his day.
Yeah.
But Paul, just so now, what does the future hold? More books, or
well,
what's on your radar?
Okay, right now sadly I don't have the opportunity to learn how to surf because there's not much surf around Zimbabwe. But I might go down to South Africa to Jeffreys Bay?
Yeah.
To learn down there because I
love it. Is that what you want to do?
Well, my balance is good, and I can do a lot of exercise in my balance. I don't have any single injury. Thank God I've inherited my mother's genes when it comes to injury. I don't have one. And then I just thought the other day, you know what looks fun? Skateboarding. I want to skateboard, Hannes. So of course I work with my law business, and it's just got such a great atmosphere. And it's busy, we're busy. But also, you know, there's that, of course. There is, keeping fit's a big part of my life. It's a very big part of my life. And you know, I've got to pick up. So I'm beginning to kayak again below the, and I kind of shit myself a bit, but it's just such adrenaline, and it's exhilarating, and I love it. I'm getting back into it. I used to do a lot and left it for years, but I'm back into that. And I thought skateboarding would be a nice thing to add on. So I'll wear a helmet. My daughters insist I wear a helmet because I don't on my motorbike. It's okay, but you have to on a skateboard.
And so Paul, you're still practicing, eh? You've still got your nose in the law books?
Yeah. And here's the thing, Hannes. This is where, again, I've been doggedly pursued by good luck. I hated law, as I've told you. But I was out of it for 25 years with Shearwater. When I decided to get back into it, I found that I really enjoyed it. I learned more by just reading and going right back in history to Justinian and you know, the sort of pre-Roman days of how the law began and what was behind it and the essence and that hugest of questions. Who judges the judges? Well, we got a lot of reason. There's a lot of the world these days has got a lot of reason to ask that question. Who judges the judges? So a lot of law began to fascinate me. So I enjoyed it when I got back.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've got to say I still do. I have the most wonderful legal partner. And she's just a gift. And I've got a staff that are great, and they love it because they spend most of the day just pulling my leg and making fun of me. And they know they can get away with it. I will shout from my office down to the reception. She's Tonya. I say, Tonya! And she says, what? So I say, come here, I need your help. She says, you will wait. Then I have to wait until okay, I'll wait. And then it's just the easiest, relaxed atmosphere. And I love it. It's a great place to go. You go in there in the morning, you're going to be smiling within a minute.
And are you putting on a jacket and tie to go to work?
No. But I do wear socks and shoes.
See, this is where standards go to hell.
I do wear socks and shoes.
People like this.
I wear nice trousers with a belt and the belt buckle in the middle. And I wear a nice proper shirt and socks and shoes. And that's perfectly decent enough.
John, Paul, sorry, just a last question. And this is not an easy one. AI, where's that going to leave the lawyers? Is there going to be anything for the lawyers to do?
Well, I think by then I'll be finished working. But it's definitely, it's extraordinary, Hannes, what's happening with AI. There's a lot of things that are going on in this world. We know that from the days of Cicero, people like Cicero said, oh, the world is changing so much and there's too many people now. But all they knew about the world was basically the Fertile Crescent, the Middle East, not much else. And then throughout the centuries, the Nostradamuses and other people have been saying, oh, now the world is coming to an end. It's Waco and all these things more recently, same sort of thing. But the changes now are more fundamental. They are deep and they are irreversible. AI is irreversible. Climate change is irreversible. Whether it's I think it's exacerbated by man, but I think it's also very much a natural phenomenon. We know there have been ice ages in the past. We know that. And all right, there's going to be a heat wave, but climate does change. Who was it? Maybe the Chinese said, when a butterfly flaps its wings over the Amazon jungle, it's going to cause a volcano and Krakatoa, which blew itself into extinction. That sort of thing. But AI is, I think, very close to being uncontrollable, and then you go to that, who was it in the Second Coming? The best have lost all conviction and the worst are filled with passionate intensity. The thing is, Hannes, I don't know who's the best or who's the worst anymore. It's a confused world. It's a confused world. It's not as though I choose not to know about AI. It's just that I don't have the ability to use AI. I mean, I find it difficult to use my cell phone properly. Yeah. So how will I use AI, get into AI? Danny, my partner. Tanya, my staff. Gertrude, my staff. B, my staff. They know. I leave that over to them. But to answer your question, because, strange enough, because we never know what's going to come from the government department next time round, whether it's the Registrar of Deeds or the Companies Office or the revenue authorities. AI can't predict what this government's going to do. So you do an agreement, for example, a transaction, which might be complicated, but you've got to cover eventualities because of potential sort of
political change.
Yeah, absolutely, and different regulations and statutory instruments. AI can't predict that, whereas we perhaps can, or we can cover it because we know that they might exist. I think this government's got the better of AI. AI doesn't know how to deal with us, but it's a mess. It's big in my
Certainly
mind. In my mind.
And that's what changes.
Yeah.
Well, Paul, thanks, man.
It's been great.
Always good seeing you.
Always good seeing you, Hannes.
Good luck with the book.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll keep
Thanks.
helping you.
Thanks, Hannes. Very nice.
Jess.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks, Jess.